I don't service my watches. I've said this in many of my videos. I actually made a video very early on in my channel where I talked about the reasons why I don't service my watches. This is a follow-up to that video. I have a couple of more points that I want to make, but I'm going to use a lot of the information that I used in that first video and hopefully communicate it a little bit better than I did way back when. So I'm going to get right into my reasons why you should never service your watches. So right off the bat, I say never service your watches. Obviously, that is a little crazy. You need to service your watches at certain points, and I'm going to tell you when those points occur and when you should be servicing your watches. I don't service my watches on any regular intervals, and that is what this video is all about. When you buy a watch from a luxury brand, they usually give you box and papers. In those papers, you're going to find information on the intervals that you should be servicing your watch. A lot of watch brands suggest maybe 5 years, 10 years, some maybe even 2 years. It depends on the model and what kind of watch it is. However, one thing that they all have in common is that they're going to want you to service their watches on some sort of regular interval. Why do they want that? Well, they want to keep you as a customer. They want to keep you spending money with the brand. I'm saying right here, right now, it doesn't matter if you bought a brand new watch or a used watch, you do not need to listen to the manufacturer's advice on servicing that watch. You need to listen to logic. You need to hear the reasons why people don't service their watches, because I am definitely not the only person who prescribes to this method. So definitely hear them out. And then if you have comments, add them down below. Please do not attack me. Please do not attack other people in the comments. This is a friendly conversation. This is something that I do. Just because I do it doesn't mean that you need to do it. You should definitely do your own research on this subject and come up with your own decision based on the information that you find. You guys know I'm always complaining about marketplaces like eBay and Chrono24. Today's video is sponsored by Chronograbs, a new marketplace that is dedicated to the enthusiast. Started by John P. of the John P. Watches YouTube channel. This new enthusiast-based marketplace is exclusively for selling your watches, and right now, if you sign up with Chronograbs, there are 0 fees, buying or selling. So that means you're going to get a better price when you're buying and more money when you're selling, because there are no fees currently on Chronograbs. And also, if you sign up right now for a free account on Chronograbs, by June 15th, you are automatically entered to win a Tudor Black Bay watch. All you have to do is sign up for a free account on Chronograbs. Again, that is chronograbs.com. Definitely check out their website for more information on the giveaway and giveaway details. So let's say you buy a luxury watch, and in the papers it says that you should service this watch every 5 years. And let's say you keep that watch for 20 years. 20 years of your life, you've been wearing this watch. And through those 20 years, it's saying that you should service that every 5 years. You're going to be without your watch for maybe even up to a year's time, because every time you service a watch, especially with the Swiss, it takes a few months to actually get your watch back. So number one, you'll be without your watch for quite some time. Number two, those services cost money, and they are expensive. If it is a Swiss brand, usually it will cost between $1,000 and $2,500, depending on the watch and depending on the complications. It could be a lot more than that. Usually it won't be much less than $1,000. Now, there are always exceptions to the rules. There are some more affordable watches out there. I would imagine a Christopher Ward, if you need to get that service, it's going to cost less than $1,000, especially if the watch costs $1,000. So this is all relative. I'm talking about luxury brands here, so definitely keep that in mind. So here's my proposal. Instead of servicing your watch every 5 years, why not just wear your watch until it stops working? So in other words, it stops telling time, or it's not telling time accurately, or if there's a function on the watch, like a chronograph or a date, and those items stop working, you need to get your watch serviced. That's when you bring your watch in and say, hey, I need a service. Now, it will not happen within a 5-year interval, especially if that is a brand new watch. If you got your watch serviced 5 years ago, the likelihood of that watch breaking within the next 5 years is very, very low, and it will probably tell very accurate time for many years past that 5-year interval. So you could end up servicing your watch maybe one time in 20 years, and the service will cost exactly the same as if you serviced it every single 5-year interval. And for those of you who don't believe that, I'm going to tell you two stories, personal stories of services that I performed, that I had done on my watches, and the results. So number one, I bought a watch on eBay. It was a Breguet Type 20. I bought the watch, I got it. It had a scratch on the sapphire crystal. I complained to the guy that I bought it from, and we worked out something that I would be able to go and get a service. It was around $500 off of the price. Now, I didn't think that getting a sapphire crystal would cost $500, but I figured that is going to definitely cover me. I went to Breguet, and Breguet told me in order for them to actually change the sapphire crystal, they had to do a complete overhaul on the watch. Otherwise, they would not service the watch whatsoever. And that service would cost $1,500. So off the back of that, I went to another reputable repair shop here in New York City that is not actually associated with Breguet or really any brand. I brought it to them and they swapped out the sapphire crystal with a Breguet sapphire crystal for around $400. It was actually more than I expected it would cost, but that's what they did it for. And I ended up selling that watch later on eBay anyway with the new crystal on it. But with that aside, the watch was telling perfect time. The chronograph was working perfectly. The only thing that was wrong with it was that there was a scratch on the sapphire crystal and they wanted to do a full overhaul, and it would be $1,500. Now, fast forward a few years ago, I was at a flea market here in New York and I saw that they had some vintage watches. I went over and I looked at them, and there was an Omega Speedmaster Mark II in a bin that they were selling for around $600. This was on a bracelet. I actually still have this watch. It is beautiful. I decided to buy it even though the chronograph was not working. It was telling time, but the chronograph was not functioning, and I couldn't live like that. I wanted to have this fixed. So I brought it to a local AD here on Long Island, and I brought it to them and I said, hey, I would like to get this repaired. They said, okay, we're going to replace the crystal. They're going to replace the hands, the dial, and all of this other stuff that they suggested. I said, no, please, just service the chronograph movement. Don't replace the hands, don't replace the dial. You could replace the mineral crystal that it had because it was very scratched up. And that was the only thing that I wanted them to do. They took it, they had it for over 3 months while they were repairing it. It went back to Switzerland, it went back to Omega. Omega actually repaired it. I don't know if it went to Switzerland, I gotta be honest. Actually, let me backtrack there. It could have went to New Jersey. I have no idea if it went to Switzerland. I was told it went to Switzerland. Who knows where it actually went. But they did the repair and I got the bill, and it was $1,200. $1,200 for a watch that was in very, very rough condition. They also changed the dial and the hands, gave me the dial and the hands on the side, so I have the original dial, I have the original hands. They completely overhauled the movement. They took the entire movement apart and they cleaned it and they replaced a bunch of parts in the movement. So basically, this watch looks brand new when I got it back from Omega from this service, and it was $1,200. Here's the point. If I had brought that in working in really good condition, the overhaul would have cost me $1,200 because they would have done the exact same amount of work. That's what they do. When you bring it in for a service, they are only going to do a major service on the watch. That is all they do. If there's a part broken, they are not just going to fix that part. They're going to take apart the entire watch, check for any other issues, put it all back together, and send it back to you as a completely serviced watch. So again, my point here is the 5-year intervals, the 10-year intervals, the 2-year intervals, they mean nothing. Wear your watch until it is not working properly, and then of course you can get its service. Now there is always an exception to every single rule, and the exception here I would say is if you are using your watch as a professional. So if you're a diver and you have a dive watch that you use to time things and do things underwater, you need to service your watch. You cannot not service your watch here because this is very important. Your life actually depends on it. If you use it for your job where you're timing things, you use a chronograph, maybe you're in sports, maybe you're in car racing, These things, you need to have a watch that is serviced and working perfectly at its peak. So I highly recommend keeping those service intervals as suggested. And if your job is important to you or the way that you are timing things is important to you, definitely service your watches. So those are exceptions to the rule in my opinion. And the other situation where I think servicing really doesn't make sense is if, of course, you have a large collection. If you have more than one watch, that means you're cutting the amount of time you should have to service your watches in half. If you're wearing your watches equally, so if you're rotating your watches or rotating through your watches on a regular basis, that means your watches are sitting, not being used. There's not a lot of stress being put on the movements. That means you don't need to service them incredibly often. And since I'm a watch collector, I have multiple watches. It is rare that I go from one day to the next wearing the exact same watch. That means my watches are sitting most of their life. So that means I don't need to service any watches. I have only serviced maybe 3 or 4 watches in my entire watch collecting career, and I've been collecting for over 25 years. I have many, many watches, and I barely have serviced any of them, a small fraction. So I'll finish this video up with a little bit of an analogy that I made in that previous video that I spoke about in the past. This is going to be the same analogy, however, I want to iron out some of the finer points. I likened watch collecting to collecting cars, to servicing cars. So in other words, you have to service your car on a regular interval. However, if it stops working, obviously you're going to bring it in for service. Servicing cars is different from servicing watches. Even though watch collecting and car collecting have a lot in common, they are very different from a logistical standpoint. You have to service cars on a regular basis. If you don't, you're going to end up getting stranded someplace. You might be driving along and something that you didn't maintain may break and then you will get stranded. Or worse, you could even get hurt or killed if you're driving at high speeds. If you are not properly maintaining a classic car or even a modern car, it really doesn't matter. Proper maintenance is very, very important. When you're talking about a watch, if you don't maintain your watch on a regular basis, the only thing that's going to happen is you might be late for something. However, we are surrounded by clocks these days. It's not the 80s or 90s. No one comes up to you anymore and asks you, what time is it? Just because they see that you have a watch on your wrist. Everyone has a phone in their pocket. It's far more accurate than any mechanical watch that you're going to be wearing on your wrist. So there really is no point to these watches anymore. Everywhere you look, not only on your phone, there are clocks in your car, on your computer. It doesn't matter where you are, there are clocks, and usually those are very accurate time-telling devices because they are atomic or they're getting a radio signal. It doesn't matter. They're more accurate than what's probably on your wrist. If your watch stops working, you're not going to die. You're going to be able to tell the time, and then you can just go and get your watch serviced. So the bottom line, the whole point of this video is if you have a lot of watches or if you have one watch, don't service your watches on regular intervals. Save that money up and buy more watches. That's basically the whole point of this video. I service none of my watches. All the money that I would have spent on service, I probably just put that towards more new watches. It's definitely true. Anyway, guys, tell me what you think down in the comments below. Let's keep it civil. I know this is a topic that gets a lot of people heated, especially those out there who service their watches on a regular basis. They don't want to be told that they're wasting money or time. I get that. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just giving my opinion. Again, this is just my opinion. I do collect a lot of watches, so tell me why you think I might be wrong down in the comment section below. If you agree with me, also tell me down in the comments. I want to hear what you think about what I said, and if you would add anything or remove anything from what I just talked about. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. I will catch you guys in the next video.